What on earth become of this place? Across the street from his own cafe, which used to have a line out the door every Saturday morning, but now is his father's pride, Zachary Lowell grumbled to himself as he got out of his parked rental vehicle. A few clients are dispersed, and 2 of them are leaving with irritated expressions. Zach tightened the hoodie over his face, adjusted his baseball hat, and crossed the street. It had been more than a year since he had been in this shop, number 4 out of 9. Not since his father died and left him the company. Zach has been immersed in running the business from the top ever since. Payroll systems, distributor contracts, and corporate meetings. Now he hardly recognized the names of the baristas, much less the shop managers. Zach sought clarification as a growing number of online complaints about the establishment's unfriendly personnel. Lengthy wait times and lukewarm coffee began to accumulate. Miles, the district manager, dismissed it as a phase of growing up. But there was something wrong about his tone. Zach made the decision to enter as a regular client rather than the proprietor. He donned prescription spectacles, grew out his beard, and looked like a weary college student. He had never been seen in person by anybody at this business. This was a place his father had always managed personally. The scent of burned espresso struck him as soon as he entered. There was a sticky layer of syrup on one of the countertops, and the music was excessively loud for an early gathering. Behind a lady with a diaper bag and a kid, Zach slipped into the short queue. Behind the counter, a young barista with platinum, blonde hair in an untidy bun, and a phone tucked beneath her apron strap glanced up for a moment, before lowering her gaze back to her fingernails. Then she stated bluntly. As her kid cried, the lady in front of Zach got up, made her order, and struggled with her money. From the rear of the line, the barista's intense eye roll was obvious. Next up was Zach, please, a large black coffee. The barista just touched her screen, extended her hand, and waited without saying anything. Zach made his cash payment and moved, aside as she made it without even looking at him. After accepting the coffee, he moved toward the rear corner close to the corridor that went to the staff break room. He wanted to listen, but he wasn't even sure whether patrons were permitted to sit back there. He sat calmly, took a tepid drink, and glanced about as he had to. Now there was only one other patron sitting in the cafe, looking through his phone. Before he heard it, the environment seemed cold, not because of the temperature, but because of the energy. 2 voices, barely audible but near enough to be heard, came from the corridor behind the counter. One voice added, "I swear I'm going to spit in the drink if one more idiot asks for a dairy-free option." Women. The barista who served him was familiar. A second masculine voice laughed. "I accomplished something yesterday that you ought to have seen." A guy attempted to gripe about how weak his coffee was. "That's what you get when you order drip in a real cafe," I told him. They both chuckled. Zach stopped. The girl went on. "This place is a farce and I no longer even give a damn. We run the damn place and they won't ever fire us since we're so understaffed." Zach's mouth clenched. His heart thumped. "I told Miles that we should cease spending time teaching the new female since she is very sluggish," the man said. "Told him out front that we would either reduce her hours or she would hurry up." Zach felt sick to his stomach. He was unaware about the new girl, and what kind of management would allow baristas to choose who gets to work. The 2 baristas returned, and he got up, coffee in hand, and proceeded approaching the counter. The tall, slender man had a smug look on his face, but it disappeared when he caught Zach gazing at him. "Hello, may I assist you?" The barista, a man, inquired. Zach remained silent. Without a word, he turned and left through the door. He sat for a few minutes in solitude back in his vehicle. He tapped the driving wheel with his fingers. He was ill. He had been so preoccupied with the economic aspect that he had forgotten what made the firm his father founded unique: genuine community, service, and respect. Punks like these were now contaminating it from the inside out. He took out his phone and dialed Lee, his assistant, who was one of the few individuals he still trusted in the organization. "I need the complete list of employees for Store 4, he stated. "Find out when the new girl's next shift is and provide me their schedules." Lee stopped. "Is everything all right?" "No," Zach responded. "However, it will soon be." Zach was resting against the brick wall just outside the cafe's rear door, watching the staff parking lot. The ice on the windshields had not yet begun to melt, and the sun had just begun to peek over the roofs. He looked at his watch. 6:23. Since 5:45 he had been waiting in his vehicle. The new employee Ava was scheduled to open this morning with the same two baristas from yesterday per the schedule Lee supplied. Zach was sleep-deprived. They chuckled about decreasing someone's eyes, hours as if it were a joke, and he kept hearing their words in his thoughts. A white Toyota parked next to the trash after pulling into the lot. A young lady emerged with a canvas bag slung over her shoulder and a knit cap pulled over her ears. She stopped, looked around the building as if she was regaining her composure, and then proceeded to the rear entrance. Zach kept just enough distance between them as he followed. He was careful not to startle her. He seized the door with his foot and slid in behind her as she unlocked it and entered. Startled, she turned. "I apologize. I thought I had locked that." Zach removed his hood. "You performed?" "Well, today is my scheduled shadowing day. Caleb is his name." He held out his hand. She shook it after hesitating. "You're new, Ava." She nodded. "First shift," and ushered him along the slender corridor to the staff section. "You've already won since you're not late. Be aware that mornings might be difficult, particularly if the tempo is unfamiliar to you." Zach trailed after her into the rear chamber. It was small, with a dented mini-fridge, 2 metal lockers, and a folding table with a half-empty box of powdered donuts. Ava put an apron around her waist and took off her jacket. Zach followed after, seeing that she moved effectively yet hesitantly, as if she were always waiting for an explanation. She added, "You'll probably be on dish and restock. They often start folks there, I understand." "You like it here?" he remarked in a light-hearted manner. She shrugged a little and pulled her apron tighter. "Everything is okay. All I need are the hours. I take what I can since I'm in school." Footsteps reverberated down the corridor before he could inquire more. The tall bartender from yesterday, Logan, as Tag calls him, entered through the open door while chewing gum and wearing headphones. Round his neck, keeping his eyes off Ava, he told her, "You're early." Then he caught sight of Zach. Ava answered, "Who's this new hire?" Logan gave Zach a thorough examination on the first day. "We don't know why they keep sending us folks. We're completely booked." Zach just followed instructions while maintaining a neutral face. After removing an apron from the hook, Logan faced Ava. "Caleb was the one who set you on register. You're on dish. Stay out of the path." He went to the front without waiting for a response. Zach leaned in Ava's direction. "That's how he is all the time." She smiled tightly, more as a courtesy than a joke. "Generally speaking, you'll be okay if you simply keep your head down." Out onto the main level they went. The pre-open duties were underway, although it was still dark in the cafe. Pastries are arranged, counters are cleaned, and machines are warmed up. There was already Mira, the blonde barista from yesterday, tinkering with the espresso grinder. Ava said, "Good morning," but Mira didn't answer. She changed the grind setting and left without saying anything. Zach went over to the dishwashing station and began washing out pitchers that still had milk residue on them. The sink area lacked organization. The drain board was tilting awkwardly due to the loss of 2 legs, and cleaning supplies were crammed into a plastic bucket that had broken along the side. Ava completed the opening procedure quickly, aligning cups and inspecting the pastry case. From behind the counter, Logan yelled instructions loudly enough for patrons to hear when the doors opened. Mira hardly looked up as she bobbed between duties. The first client started to arrive about 7:15. As he rinsed and stacked, Zach kept his head down, observing everything. Tension quickly increased along with the morning rush. A lady at the desk yelled at me when I responded, "No whipped cream." Logan took the drink away from Ava and threw it in the sink after she apologized and attempted to mend things. He turned to the lady and said, "Do it again." "Apologies. She is still in the process of learning." With hardly concealed annoyance, the client looked at Ava. Ava remained silent. Her hands shaking a little, she poured the drink again. She took a step back and looked at Zach. "You were all right," he remarked softly. She nodded slightly but said nothing. The cafe was full by 8:00. The mobile orders kept coming in, and the queue extended almost to the door. Mira began to misinterpret names, underfill lattes, skip steps, and put no sleeves on hot cups. A guy at the pickup counter exclaimed, "Hey, this is supposed to be a cappuccino." "It is," Mira said without raising her gaze. "Most of it is milk. A cappuccino is just that." The man's eyebrow went up. "No, it isn't." Mira looked away after saying, "I don't make the rules." Zach watched the guy walk away, shaking his head and not drinking. Logan looked over. "Tell him it's a dry latte the next time. They are unaware of the distinction." Mira chuckled. Ava didn't. Zach moved away from the sink and went up to the register to speak with Ava. She wiped her hands on her apron and said, "You need a second." "No, I'm okay. Are you certain?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Your hands are shaking." "I simply want to avoid making a mistake." Zach dropped his voice. "I need this job here. You are not the issue." Ava gave him a long look. "They are new to you." Logan called from the espresso machine before he could answer. "Caleb, can you empty the mop bucket and do something?" "Constructive. It's completely filled." Zach looked over his shoulder. "The mop sink is where?" Logan remained silent. Mira gestured with her hand. "Simply empty it near the dumpster." Zach paused. "We don't have a mop sink." "Health code isn't that." Logan pivoted. "Will you report us, new guy?" Zach didn't respond. He picked up the bucket and made his way to the rear, passing Ava as she quietly thanked him and passed out a drink. He gently dropped the bucket onto the gravel spot next to the trash outside, behind the building. It smelled terrible. He saw stains and sticky residue on the concrete in 3 other areas where mop water had obviously been spilled lately. Logan was behind the counter on his phone when he returned. Mira was texting with one hand and replenishing syrups with the other. Additionally, Ava apologized to the client for the delay while attempting to ring up a complex item. Zach went back to the dishwashing station and scrubbed at a milk pitcher more vigorously than was required. There was nothing more he needed to see. Systemic in nature, the shortcuts, the apathy, and the way their indifference was gradually crushing Ava. Not one terrible day or a few poor moods. It was rot. He looked at Ava and saw that it had spread. Under the same roof he was meant to be in charge of. Her shoulders were bent and her eyes were down as she wiped the counter. After drying his hands, Zach went into the back room and took his phone out. When she replied, he said, "Lee, by evening, I need the regional manager here. In order to retrain and reset the workforce, we are closing this location." She paused. "And I want to meet Ava off-site, somewhere quiet." Zach glanced around the break room at the flickering overhead light and saw that everything was okay. Where there should have been pride, there was quiet, and the toaster smelled like burned cheese. "We're going to fix it," he added, but not even close. Just after 7 o'clock in the evening, Ava entered the library side door with her coat tightly wrapped around her like armor, and her bag hung low. She saw the guy who had previously identified himself as Caleb sitting at a table with 2 paper cups and a simple manila folder, waiting close to the window. When he noticed her, he stood, his stance composed but inscrutable. She said cautiously but courteously, "Hey." Zach nodded once. "You wanted to talk. I appreciate you coming." After hesitating, she pulled out the chair across from him and placed her luggage on the floor before sitting down. With just a handful of dispersed students chatting over textbooks, the library was all but deserted. Outside, the wall was covered with long, slow-moving shadows from passing automobiles' headlights. Zach shoved a cup in her direction. "I had no idea what you like, but it seemed like a good idea, chamomile." With a tiny nod, she encircled the cup with her hands. "Thanks. Tell me about this." Zach looked her in the eye. "Zachary Lowell is my name, not Caleb." She blinked and said, "I own the cafe you've been working at." "Hold on, what?" He went on, "I went undercover. I wanted to see it for myself since that location has been declining for months and I was unable to obtain a direct response from corporate." Ava's brows furrowed. As she leaned back, he gave her a time to process the situation and he said, "You're serious?" She took a moment to comprehend. He added, I didn't mean to drag you into anything. She glanced back at him, but I couldn't leave after what I seen today. What the heck? Am I in danger now? No, he said rapidly. Not even close. That place has been held together by you. I wanted to know what you've been dealing with off the record, which is why I came here. No supervisors, no repercussions. I simply want the truth. She nibbled the inside of her cheek as she gazed at the table. There was silence between them. Then she whispered softly. Last week, I nearly quit, she added. But the only reason I continue to show up is because I need the income. Her hold on the cup tightened. What made you want to leave? You make an effort to do things correctly, yet you're still the issue. Logan informed me that I may be replaced on my second shift. I assumed he was kidding. Subsequently, Mira began excluding me from assignments, instructing me to observe and absorb while she omitted processes and placed the blame on me when clients voiced dissatisfaction. Zach listened, his face alert yet indifferent. She said, "They don't train anyone. When you can't keep up, they become upset and simply dump you into the flow. They also behave as like you're wasting their time if you ask for assistance. For what length of time have you been employed there?" 3 weeks. She spoke in a flatter tone now. "And it seems like a year has passed already." Zach gave a slow nod. "Have you ever received a check-in from management?" Ava laughed bitterly. Miles entered once and stayed for 5 minutes. Logan remained close behind me the whole time, just long enough to inquire if we were getting settled. Zach was silent for a little, while he grabbed the folder and opened it. A copy of the last 3 staffing schedules was included. "We have at least 2 understaffed mornings," he remarked. "Additionally, no one has asked for more coverage. It has been more than a month since the timetables were altered." Ava frowned as she glanced down at the sheet. "Mira is doing closure and opening back-to-back because of this. She volunteered, I believed. Zach said that she didn't. Miles has been accepting Logan's self-submitted schedule without seeing shift records." Ava reclined as the knowledge hit her. "Thus, they are just acting in their own way." Zach shut the folder. She glanced at him and said, "No more, how will you respond?" "Our regional manager has already been contacted. For the next 3 days, the shop will be closed. To clean, replenish, and retrain all of the staff, we are bringing in a temporary crew." Ava's gaze expanded. "It's being shut down by you. This is the only technique to heal it without covering a fractured bone with a bandage. Only those who attend retraining will be given consideration for rehire, although we will still pay everyone who is booked." Ava gazed at him. "You're offering them an option." "I think there should be second chances," Zach stated. "However, I don't think indifference should be rewarded. Anyone will have to work for their job if they want to retain it." She glanced back at him after glancing down at her t-shirt. "How about me?" "You've earned yours already," he replied. "You are being promoted to shift supervisor. In addition to a title, you will be paired with one of our senior trainers, have access to scheduling, and participate in store meetings. I would want your opinion when we reassemble the squad." She opened her lips but paused before speaking. She swallowed after that. "Why me?" Simply said, "Because you care. Additionally, even though folding would have been simpler, you chose not to do so." He hesitated. "If we are to change what is wrong, we need individuals like you." Glancing down, Ava ran her hand over the edge of her cup. "I'm not sure I'm prepared for it." Zach said, "You weren't prepared for what they threw at you either. But it matters that you came up." She nodded quietly. "What will occur tomorrow then?" "At 7, we'll meet outside the cafe. We will explain the changes to the team. One warning is given to everyone who attempts to push back. They leave after that." Ava's mouth tensed a little. "That won't sit well with Logan." Zach's voice remained the same. "He is not need to." For the first time, the strain in her shoulders relaxed and she exhaled. "All right, I'll be present." Zach got up, grabbed his coat, and slipped the folder into his backpack. "Take a nap. It will be a long day tomorrow." Ava paused as she collected her belongings. "Why now? Why not months ago?" Zach gave her a long look. "Because I no longer paid attention to the floor, I allowed reports to take the place of facts. I'm responsible for it." She gave a single earnest nod. Then I suppose we each have a claim to make." Without saying another word, he nodded respectfully and walked away. Zach sat in his hotel room and stared at the wall that night. He mentally relived every exchange he had had with Ava and his own father, who had been seated across from him in a booth at their initial spot years before. According to his father, trust is developed from the bottom up. The office is not down. Zach had forgotten it somewhere along the line. But he would start again tomorrow. Starting at the counter. A temporary operations staff was already wheeling in boxes of cleaning materials and swapping out the twisted pastry racks with fresh ones by the time the sun rose the next morning. On the cafe's front entrance was a printed, closed notice for internal training. A few of the regulars stopped outside, read it bewildered, and then left, dissatisfied yet intrigued. With his arms folded, Zach leaned against the wall just inside and watched as Ava compared the supply list to the clipboard he had given her. She walked with a calm intent, and her hair was pinned back securely. She avoided asking pointless inquiries. She didn't hesitate. She did nothing but work. Ava looked at him. The delivery of the dairy arrived late. "I brought this to the attention of the temp lead, yet we are lacking oat milk." Zach gave a nod. She paused before saying, "We'll reroute stock from the Midtown store. You good to help walk the others through protocol?" Depending on who arrives. Mira entered via the main door at exactly 7:30. When she saw the workers cleaning the walls and rearranging the station drawers, she abruptly stopped. She opened her lips, but nothing came out. Then she saw Zach, wearing a black jacket. His glasses gone and his beard cropped. "You are the owner and the wait." Without a word, Ava glanced over from the register. Zach took a step ahead. "You are Mira, correct?" She nodded briefly after blinking twice. "Yes, I was unaware. No one said anything, really. Nobody was meant to." "We're going to change that," he said. "This is a fresh start, yet you're still paid. Like everyone else, you will need to undergo retraining if you choose to join the new team." She glanced around the shop. "You're terminating individuals, but we're giving them an opportunity to remain. That's not the same." She moved her weight. "And you can go if we don't want to. No animosity. However, there won't be any exceptions if you remain." She didn't answer. Rather, she moved slowly to the rear, as if she was still unsure if this was genuine. 15 minutes later, Logan showed up sporting the same tattered hoodie from the previous day. He stopped outside the door and observed what was going on within. He didn't glance at Zach when he eventually entered. He looked directly at Ava. "What is this?" His voice was quiet as he inquired. Zach moved in between them. "How you can participate in training and restructuring," Logan sneered. Zach interjected, "You can't just come in and I can. The business is owned by me. For much too long, you have been operating this shop without supervision. That's over now." Logan gave Ava a glance. "You told him everything." She said, "I didn't have to. That's what you did." He looked back at Zach. "This is absurd. We have been making every effort. We are suddenly the bad guys after you slashed hours and pulled employees." Zach didn't speak louder. "You turned in fictitious time logs. You disregarded the health code. Staff members were frightened by you. That isn't giving it your all. Abusing your position is what it is." Logan folded his arms. "What the heck, I've been let go. You don't belong in the path we're on. You will get payment for the last 2 weeks. Following that, you will no longer be able to access corporate systems." A pause occurred. Logan gave him a long look before he laughed briefly without looking at him, incredibly so. Without further comment, he turned and left. Zach breathed out slowly. Mira, who had gone back to the counter during the conversation, observed in silence. She responded, "I had no idea he was doing all that. I had a thought. He was in charge." Zach said, "No one has authority without accountability." "That's what we expect if you're staying," she said with a quiet nod. "I'll remain." By 9, the remaining employees had begun to arrive. Some were perplexed, while others were ashamed. However, they paid attention when the new guidelines were described, including the criteria for customer engagement, schedule openness, and sanitary processes. Even she was impressed by the calm steadiness with which Ava conducted the walkthroughs. Zach kept to himself and only stepped in when needed. He saw Ava's ability to answer inquiries politely, refocus Mira when she went for her phone, and remain unflinching when questioned why things were changing. She said bluntly that they weren't functioning. And it is not what we deserve. The kitchen had been thoroughly cleaned by the end of the day. A rotating break schedule was shown on the staff fridge, and a new mop sink had been placed next to the rear corridor. Ava stood in front of it, going over each line. Zach went to her side. She touched one of the slots as if we had missed something. On weekends, we'll need to schedule our lunch breaks more precisely. He nodded. We'll lose coverage between noon and 2 if we're not careful. She looked at him and said, Good catch. All of this is thus permanent, he answered, as long as it works. But rules aren't everything. It has to do with culture. It takes time for it to alter. I understand, she responded. However, it begins somewhere. He looked at her for a while. Her tone had changed, and there was no sign of the girl who had earlier apologized for serving coffee too slowly. She blinked when he asked whether she ever considered long-term management. Do you have something to offer? I'm watching, but not yet. The interim crew dispersed at closing time. The cafe would reopen to the public the next morning, with only 3 of the original employees left: Ava, Mira, and Theo, a part-time employee who had silently remained silent throughout the pandemonium and was now making his public debut. Mira walked up to Zach as he was turning off the lights. She said, I've been thinking. Since I was 17, I have worked in cafes. I liked it once. After then, it was only a matter of finishing the shift. He remained silent. She went on, I want to like it again. I'll be there, but I'm not sure whether I can take the lead. That is a beginning, he remarked. It was a calm evening outside. After locking the door, Zach gave Ava the keys. She took them, and tomorrow you'll open. I got it, he said, taking a step back. If anything seems strange, and I mean anything, give me a call. After nodding, she put the keys in her pocket. He turned to see her standing at the entrance, gazing through the glass at the room they had just remodeled together as he made his way to his vehicle. Not with fresh slogans, banners, or counters, but with the gradual and difficult restoration of confidence. The coffee makers were shining inside. The tables were spotless. The burden of fatigue was lifted from the air. 3 days had passed, but the rot had been removed. Finally, the cafe was ready to come back to life.